Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us again on another episode of Discovering Our Gifts. I'm Jeannie, and with me today are my cousins Lenny and Ani. On today's episode, we'll be discussing the dark night of the soul. We'll get into what it is, how to navigate through it, and what you can learn from it.
Quick mention before we get into the topic. Some of the things we'll be discussing could be triggering for some people emotionally. So please be aware of that as you go on to watch the video. And please keep note that we are not medical professionals. Any severe depression, and other things, please seek medical professional help, follow your doctor's instructions, and take care of yourselves.
Yes.
So the name Dark Night of the Soul comes from a book written by Saint John of the Cross. According to medium.com, the Dark Night of the Soul refers to a profound and painful period of spiritual or personal crisis characterized by feelings of emptiness, despair, a sense of being disconnected from your usual sense of purpose, meaning, or connection to the divine, whatever that may mean to you. We chose to discuss this topic today because when you go through something like the dark night of the soul, it can be a
Hard.
spiritual evolvement for you.
Mm.
So it's one of the most difficult things a person can go through, but you can grow from it spiritually, personally, emotionally, and mentally. So we thought, it would be a good topic to go over, things that people go through that put them in spiritual crisis. So we'll get into further breakdowns on the process of the dark night of the soul, but some of the stages can include the trigger, which is some kind of like significant event, such as a loss or failure that sets off the process. And then there's the crisis period, where you'll go through confusion, questioning yourself, your faith, and you feel lost. And then there's the transformation, which is a time of struggle where new insights and understandings are gained. And then you have the emergence, where a renewed sense of purpose and self is achieved after the dark night of the soul. The dark night of the soul is a really, sometimes it can be a months, years long process, depending on the situation and the person. Some of the things that you'll go through: sadness, emptiness, confusion, anger, helplessness, worthlessness, isolation, irritability, and demoralization. I know everyone's had difficult periods and stuff. What are some of the, do you have a period in particular that you girls can think of? What did you learn from it? How did you get through it? Did it make you a stronger person in the end? Like, did it make you view things differently?
Um, yeah. I If I could choose a time period in my life where I would say that I went through it, it would be the time frame of 2006 to 2008. I've always been religious. I've had strong faith. Um, I would say that I didn't lose faith per se, but my beliefs changed a little bit, or maybe a lot, just because I don't know, it became a very individual relationship with God, very personal, like to the point where I would argue with myself, and it would be talking to him, like a conversation between me and him, like, and I wasn't like I was asking him, it wasn't like I was blaming him or anything for everything that I was going through. I was just trying to understand why I was going through the things that I was going through. Um, but yeah, I had a military deployment in 2006, and I was separated from my husband. But the most thing that affected me was I was separated from my 2-year-old son, And I'm the type of mom that carries my son everywhere I will go. So I can't do this because it's making me emotional and I don't want to cry on TV.
I'm letting you know I'm gonna fight back tears, but I think it's also important so people
Yeah, no.
understand. I know it's hard. I know it's hard. Um, it's no matter how far away from the event you think you are or how far you think you've processed and everything, um, some things can trigger it. Some things will bring it
Yeah.
back. So
It's just how do I phrase it? I don't know what what that did to my son for the separation that we had. Even though we had Messenger at the time and he would log on every day to see me. And I had the privilege of being somewhere where I was able to see him. But it was hard. It was a difficult separation. And the funny thing was I had inadvertently asked for it in a way. So I was blaming myself for this situation because I was going through some stuff with my husband at the time, and I would pray, I would pray for um I guess I in a way I manifested. Sometimes I think to myself I may have manifested this because I needed space. I needed time away from my husband to evaluate my relationship. I needed but I needed to be away from him because he's a strong dominant character, and like whatever he wants, he'll do whatever he has to save our relationship basically at the end of the day. So I wanted that space away from him so I could make clear decisions on what I wanted to what I was going to do. Was I going to separate from my husband? Was I going to continue in this relationship? What were we going to do? So yeah, I ended up all the way over there, and for approximately 2 years it was I was as safe as can be in the place that I was, considering the place that I was in and the circumstances that I was in. Um, and honestly, I was thankful to God for all of that, but it was hard because I was so far away from everybody that I loved, especially my baby. Um, and to see him through a computer every day, it was hard. It was hard for me. And I just felt it got to a point where I felt really alone, and it was hard. And when I came back, he was different and everything was different. Everybody was different. And everybody was looking at me differently, like telling me, you're a different person. Like my brother would ask me, he's like, you're not the same anymore. And I couldn't put it into words at what changed me. I can't get the words out.
we'll take 2 minutes. We'll take a
Yep.
minute.
Yep. Um, I think the hardest thing out of everything was when I came back and my son didn't want me because I came back in 7-month intervals. So the first time I came back, he was like a little spider monkey on top of me. The last time that I came back, he didn't want me and he wouldn't call me mommy. He would call me by my name. And this was I think this was an ongoing battle between me and my 4-year-old at the time. Um, he would call me by my first name. I was like, no, I'm mommy. And he was like, no, you're so and so. And I was like, I'm mommy. And this was an ongoing, an everyday thing. And I would just not answer him so that he would, call me and so he would like forcibly call me mommy. But when I first got back, it was really hard. And during this whole time, I hadn't lost my faith in God, but I was questioning why is all of this stuff happening? Like, what was the purpose? And I understood, and I grew. When I came back, I was like, okay, I was shown that as ugly as it sounds, I can continue living without my son. and that I will be okay without my husband, that life goes on and that I'm a strong person. Um, I sometimes wonder if I'm even through the dark night of the soul, because I know I'm on the other side. I know I'm probably at the last stage, if any, but every now and again, I'll find something that I need to work on with myself. And I know it's that process, that continued healing, internal healing that everybody has to do. But I still, I know it's not healthy to think back, but I wonder, what the emotional damage could that have done to my son? Because he was a very outgoing person, and he's not anymore. Like, now he's a grown up. My son is 21 years old now, about to be 21. But he, it's a hard thing to go through. Um, if I could give anybody any tips, is don't lose. If you do believe in God, don't lose faith, because they're going to get you through it, and there's a purpose behind everything. I wasn't as spiritually enlightened with all these things, with the Clair abilities, as I am now. And I was very attached to stones back then. I know why now, because it's, I'm an earth sign, I'm an earth element and all that good stuff. But it's hard. I'm not gonna lie. It's a hard process to go through. You grow from it. I don't know if I agree with all the people that say that it ends, that you get through it, because I think you have continued healing that you have to go through. It's just my personal opinion. Um, and I don't know what that's all I'm gonna go into.
Yeah. So what you said, you learned that you're stronger than what you thought.
Mm,
There were things that you could deal with that you didn't think you could, but and you learned to deal with them.
yes.
Um, would that be, if, because you say you were asking why? Like with mine, the
Yeah.
why was a huge deal. Um, do you think for you to learn, I know, because we had discussed before that sometimes you have to be careful what you wish for, because you can manifest things, and you are in a, in a low vibrational place at the time when you were asking
Right.
for that and everything.
Right.
But I do also believe that things are allowed to take place, you know, because there are lessons that somehow, some way need to be learned in those situations and circumstances. Is that strength, do you think, like the biggest thing that you learn from the whole situation?
Uh, I think so. I think it was to have more confidence in myself. I think um, it opened my eyes to all the things that I'm capable of doing. Um, Aside from this spirituality, because this came further along. But
Down the road.
yeah, it I know that I'm capable of so much more than I ever thought I would be. I've done and seen things that a lot of people haven't and won't hopefully ever see. Um, but I know we came out on the other side. Like, I'm thanks to God, I'm still happy. Happily married. My son he's in college. He's doing good. Um, he seems healthy and mentally and physically healthy. Um, God willing. He and I think I am, how everyone was questioning me, that I had changed. I did. Uh, I don't think it was for the worse. I think a more mature side of me came out, maybe. I don't know. Um, I know how to say no more. I'm because like I didn't grow up in the best place. So I had certain tendencies, like not tough girl tendencies, but I wouldn't take crap from anybody. But now it's like, yeah, I can back that up kind of deal. Um, no, I don't know. I think I grew up for real would be the, I learned to forgive also, to forget about the stupid stuff, things that
What's
you consider.
important?
Yes. Yes. I think that was so I think I don't know, I think I grew up some more. So I think you don't stop growing and you don't stop healing and you don't stop learning. But I
You
did a
shouldn't
lot of
anyway.
it. Yeah, I did a lot of it in 2 years.
Yeah.
So there's that. But yeah, I don't know. What about you guys?
Ah, I don't know how can I start, and I don't know if I have the correct words, to explain that. But I think my difficult time in my life, it was like 7 years ago, and I was so sick, and I know something happened with my body because I know my body. And I decided to go to the doctors and everything, and I know I have something. And at the first appointment, my doctor said, you have something, but I can't tell you, after the test and everything. So I just telling you because you have to be ready for, some in case you have something. But he believes I have something on my body. So at the same time, I feel so bad, so bad. I was doing my test. I think during like 2 months, tests and tests and
You were
tests.
feeling really sick?
Like yes, and I feel so weak. I can't eat. I just only eat just one meal on a day. And after my results, on my test, I decide to divorce because I was separate. I think like maybe 2 years before that. I think so. I'm not remember clearly. So I don't know why I decided to do that. I was so scared to do that, but I did it. But everything, it was like blocking me because I was so sick. I don't feel good. I was not feeling good. And I always dizzy. I always like problem in my stomach. And I don't know why I decide to, to ask for help for my divorce because I don't have 0 pennies on my account. So I decide to find help on the violence, domestic violence, women's
Yes.
in a program, and they helped me. I did it, but I was so scared to do that. So when I did it, I was so scared, and everything blocked just in case something happened with me because I don't know in what kind of sickness or level I was. So I decided to divorce because I was I don't know if I'm going to pass away or something just in case I'm divorced. That's,
So you wanted to be divorced
yeah,
before, God forbid,
yeah,
something happened.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
because I was thinking about my kids. And I'm trying to think about what's going to be happen with my kids if something happened with me. So I was so negative, believe me. My mind, it was so negative. I was thinking too much. And the thing is, when I decide to divorce, the other side blocked me. And he never, and he don't know I was with the divorce, and he was selling the house. And when you try to divorce, you can sell anything. So I have a lot of problem with him. I was so sick. Nobody knows about my sickness. And I have 0 pennies on my account. So I was so sad. And I don't see any protection about, God with me. I don't understand anything. But I was, and I think this was my dark
Night
night.
of the soul. Mhm.
Yeah, because I was so sad all the time. I don't feel good, but I decide to no show up in front of my kids, my sadness or my sickness, because they was, like maybe 11 years or 12, something like that, on that age, and 9. And I decide to, you know, to find part of the God, with me, but I can't see anything. I can't see any protection. But one day I was praying a lot every day, praying and praying and praying. And one day I received a message of God, like in a dream. And in my dream, I have a dark night because I remember I was in a high mountain. And when I was looking back, how you say that in English, they are nothing, como un precipicio.
You were,
Precipice.
you were standing
Yeah.
on a precipice.
Yes. So when I look back, I saw that. And when I look at the front, I saw like a big mountain like this. And I saw a white house up. But I don't see any path to go there. And I know I have to go there, but I don't know why, because I don't see any road, I don't see any path, nothing. So everything's gonna be, like dark, like night. I think it was like the same happened in my life. So I say, oh my God, everything is dark, it's night. And I can move, I can walk. I was like, how you say, paralyzed, like paralizada.
Yes. Paralyzed.
So I can't move. Yeah, so like my foot, I think they have glue on there, because I can't move. So I don't know why I was waiting to the next morning. And when the sun's coming, I was looking again at up of the mountain. I say, God, how can I go there? And I feel like I hear the voice of God. And it was raining. And I feel something like warm in here. And he was like, start talking to me. But I remember my head, it was like going down like this. I can look out of the mountain when he started talking to me. And he say, with the rain, I'm gonna do the path, the road. And you don't have to look back anymore. And I saw like what you say, cascada in English?
A
Waterfall.
cascade.
A
A waterfall.
So you can see water on the waterfall again. It's not dry anymore. So when he finished to talk to me, when I saw that again, when I opened my eyes, I saw the path to go up to the mountain, to the White House. So when I woke up, I was crying and crying and cried because I know it was a message for me. It was a hard time because I started like panic attacks
Mhm.
and everything after the surgery, after my sickness. I was so sad. I was not, like a real Annie like me. But after that, I say, you know what? Everything, it was fine with me. I was on time on my sickness. The doctor say, you're lucky. You was on time. And my divorce, I did my divorce. I stopped my divorce 2 times because I can't do that because I was so sick. But after that, I remember that I say to me, you have to do everything. No matter what you're afraid or scared, do that. Do that. No matter what. No matter what, no matter darkness in your life, you have to move. You have to move. And when I look back, I say, I'm not the same person. I'm not the same person. I was like, I don't care if I feel scared, do that. Do that. No matter what, God is with you. He's not talking to you. It doesn't matter. He's with you. You don't have to hear that. He's with you. And I feel very proud about me because I did everything by myself. And I remember I say, I moved to the United States. I don't know English. I don't have nobody to help me. So I was thinking a lot of thoughts in here. And I say, you know what? I don't care about any problems anymore. Because, no matter what, I know God is with me and my kids. And I learned something. I say, I know I'm more strong than before. Yeah.
And you
And
You
believe more in
don't,
yourself now?
yes. And you know what? I was not afraid about if I'm gonna pass away or not. I just only think about my kids. That's the
yeah,
only, scare or something.
yeah.
But I'm here. So,
Amen.
so and I feel blessed. I feel blessed.
Same.
First person that I called, it was Tini.
Hmm.
When they called me to the office, and I say, you're positive. And I was crying for 30 minutes inside my car. And I don't know. I say, how can I do now? I don't know. But I'm here, I'm healthy, and I'm fine.
Lenny, I know you ready to share yours?
No, but um, mine started in 2007. Um, we were hit head on by a drunk driver on our way to church. And my youngest, I had just had him. He was 2 months old. Our middle child was 9. And thank God our oldest was with his mother. He wasn't with us that day. So we were going to church and they lived on our street. And it was in the middle of the day and they were coming home and we were leaving. And there was a hill. And when we got to the top of the hill, they were driving directly at us. And my husband saw them. It was a small street and there were trees on both sides and power poles. And he saw them and he swerved, but because they were drunk, they had a delayed reaction and they swerved after we did and they ended up hitting us anyway. Thankfully, we all survived. My husband, was pretty banged up and everything. The baby was fine. The worst case scenario at the scene was me and my son, the 9-year-old, because he was sitting directly behind us and they didn't hit us directly head on. It was like patty corner a little bit. So it came in, the impact hit my corner and everything. It's a long story, everything that happened in that moment. My 9-year-old was our little hero. You know, he was all scraped up and everything, and he had to go get us help, um, and all of that. Um, I try not to think about the accident in detail too much. I try not to think about like everything that happened with the kids and everything. So,
Mm.
um, thankfully, my son was okay. They had to medevac him. They were trying to medevac him. They couldn't because of the trees and everything where we were. So they had to take him by himself. He was bleeding from his ears and all kinds of stuff. I couldn't move from the car. I broken both my legs. I could tell immediately. I snapped my wrist and everything. And all this stuff happened in that moment. Long story short, I woke up at the hospital that night. And the first thing I remember seeing was my legs up in the air. They were wrapping my legs and everything. And I asked them, you know, what happened, what's going on. And they told me everything that was wrong with me, the chest. And then I'm trying to jump ahead. That's why I keep, and I'll cut out all the ums. So basically, by the time everything was all said and done, thankfully my children and husband were okay. I had snapped my clavicle, I snapped my wrist, I had fractures to the first 5 vertebrae in my spine. I damaged my hip, my pelvis. I had a crushed right foot. I had a broken left foot. They didn't know if I was even going to be able to keep my one leg because the damage was so bad. They didn't know if the blood supply flow was going to stay intact. So they let it, um, they were trying to let the swelling go down for a few days, couple of surgeries, all of that. I make it out of the hospital. I was there for a week and I thought, I'm hurt and everything. I don't know what's gonna, if I'll be able to walk again because they didn't know if I would have use of my foot. But I was alive and there was like an adrenaline rush to it, like because there was an actual moment where I was stuck in the car and the car started smoking and the radiator blew and I thought it was going to catch on fire and my husband couldn't get me out of the car. The doors were stuck. And for a split second, I thought I was going to die in the car in a fire. So there was an adrenaline rush and everything, and I was okay. It wasn't easy during that time, that period. I was in a wheelchair for like 3 months, casts for about 3.5, almost 4 months, procedures, surgeries, all kinds of stuff. There was so much damage that they didn't tell me that I had basically broken my back in the accident. They were so concerned with my arms and my leg and everything that they never told me. And I was on pain medication, so I wasn't feeling pain in my back any more than usual. I had already had back issues before then, so I was used to back pain and it didn't seem any worse than normal because of the medications. That time being at home was really hard. I had tried to have our baby for 4.5 years, and now he was 2 months old, and I had one arm in a cast, both legs in a cast. I was wheelchair bound. I could barely go to the bathroom by myself. Like there was, and I would cry because I couldn't take care of my baby. And I would think he's not going to know I'm his mom. He's going to think my mom is his mom and all this stuff. It was a lot during that period. And you would think that that was the worst. Um, it wasn't. I eventually ended up going back to work and I had a lot of pains and issues, but I kept ignoring them. And they eventually blew up out of control. I took on so much trauma. I developed a nerve disorder, and I had still damage to my spine, my hip, my pelvis, my foot, and all of that. And it got to the point I had spoken on another episode where it had gotten to the point where going to work every day, I was in so much pain all the time. And the actual drive was giving me such bad anxiety. I had like an hour drive to work, and it like I developed alopecia during that time. My hair started falling out, all of these issues. And I eventually decided to stop working, which was like a really huge deal for me. I never envisioned myself not working. Um, so the doctor said it was time. Between all of the issues and therapy that I needed and all of that. So I stopped working, and my doctor sent me to a therapist that wasn't listening to me, a physical therapist. And it was before they told me about the spinal damage and the damage to my hip and pelvis and everything. And I kept telling him the things that I was feeling, but he kept brushing me aside. So they had me doing exercises that were making my conditions worse, my skeletal conditions. And, I had like 3 months of physical therapy. I had a week left, and I ended up twisting my pelvis running in the rain one day. So from that point on, I was dependent on a cane. Um, and then I found out that, yeah, they didn't tell you in the hospital, you broke your back, you need spinal surgery, you have a vertebrae slip, you have 4 damaged discs, you have this, and that. Oh, and by the way, that uh, nerve disorder that you got, you're not supposed to have any surgeries because it can spread it. And I, the the nerve disorder that I have, there's no cure for it. The nickname for it is called the suicide disease because it's so painful. It's one of the most painful diseases you can have. And I was in so much pain just from the nerve disorder and everything that I wasn't even thinking about having any more surgeries or anything like that. So, all in all, they basically told me chances are you're going to end up in a wheelchair. Um, you'll probably be dependent on your cane for the rest of your life, and the whole thing. When I tell you the anger that I probably should have felt when the accident first happened came in at that point. I was really, really angry because at this point I felt like I'd gone through all of this. I jumped through all these hurdles. I got better, went back to work. I was taking care of my kids, doing all the things that I was doing, and yet this is still keeps coming back to haunt me. I thought the pain was bad enough, but they were like, "Oh no, just hold my beer." um, I became really, really angry with God. I didn't blame God. I was just really angry with God. I was really angry. I'm an extremely independent person, and I was dependent on everybody around me. I couldn't depend on my body anymore. I was in pain all the time. I was having to take medications that I didn't like. I felt broken. I felt emotionally, spiritually, and physically broken. Um, it was so bad. Like I had a hard time. My husband and my children were what got me through that time. Um, but I still had a hard time connecting with them during that time. Like I felt disconnected from everybody. And that's when I chose to get help. I started seeing a counselor and everything, and I did almost 2 years therapy. And when I tell you, there were days when I thought life was not worth living like this. I really thought, I mean, the pain alone makes you feel that way. And then they tell you there's no cure. We don't know if it's going to go away. You have all these other physical issues, and you can't take care of them until this one is under control and all of that stuff. All I saw in my future was a wheelchair. And I became really, really angry. I couldn't clean my house. I couldn't cook dinner. I couldn't run errands. I couldn't, there were so many things. I used to take care of everything, and now I couldn't do anything. And I didn't understand what I was doing then, but I was trusting the process. I was just taking it one day at a time. One day at a time, you'll get through this one day at a time. I mean, I was having anxiety attacks almost every day. I was having panic attacks at least once a week. My depression, my anxiety, everything was just through the roof. So I had to learn to trust the process. I started asking a lot of questions. Why? Why did this happen to me? What was I supposed to learn from it? Because for me, everyone said it was just the wrong place, wrong time. And that wasn't good enough for me. This event turned my entire life upside down. It made me feel less of a mother, less of a wife, less of a person. There's no way I could be forced to go through something like that just because I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like, if there is not more meaning to it than that, I can't. I'll never accept this. I'll never accept it. And I had to go through that process, find the meaning of it. What could I learn from it? I learned how much stronger I am. I learned how much my husband loves me. I learned how much my children love me. Um, and as hard as it was, as disconnected as I was, I had to learn to reach out for help. I had to depend on other people, and I had to hold on to the things, my children and my husband, to make it through. It was a depression so dark, like, you think to yourself, how am I supposed, I don't know when this is going to end, when these feelings are going to pass. How, I can barely stand the next hour feeling this way. How am I going to make it through the next year? What if it's 2 years? What if it's 3 years? And I would go through those times. Um, and there's so much I'm leaving out. I'm trying to
Mhm.
condense and everything. But it, I know how strong I am now. I did go through it for a reason, and it was multi-layered, the reasons that I found. One of the reasons was it led me to where here today. It
Mhm.
started me on that spiritual journey. Like, it started me questioning circumstances and who I am, and if this happened to happen, what is it that I'm supposed to learn from this, and asking all the questions. And it put me on a completely different path and a different route. At one point, I think I've said it on here before, I had called the entire thing a never ending nightmare. It started in 2007, and I didn't start to feel normal again until 2018. Mid to late 2018, I started getting back into a better place. And it was little by little, like, every day didn't get better at first, but the months would get better. You know what I mean? Like, little things would get better, and I would hold on to all of those things. I um, forced myself to learn new things during that time to keep my mind distracted and healthy and things like that. I learned new ways of getting things done. If I can't carry baskets of laundry across the house, then I'll get a rolling hamper and I'll, drag the laundry across the house. If I can't vacuum the entire house in one day, well, then one room a day gets vacuumed. Like, I had to learn new ways of being, new interests. I used to love dancing. Me and my husband met dancing, like where we went, there was dancing. Our second or third date, we went ballroom dancing. It was something we used to do all the time, and I couldn't dance anymore. It completely changed me. It changed all the things that I love to do, the things that I was interested in, how I functioned, how I viewed myself, everything. It was a full life altering event. And now, as crazy as it sounds, I'm grateful for parts of it. Would I go through it again? No.
No. Let me ask you both a question real quick. What would you say, like, if because I heard somewhere, right, that based on St. John's of the Cross, the book that he wrote on the Dark
Mhm.
Night of the Soul, he he says that in the part of purification is like a process of letting go. And they say that the best way to describe it is like looking into a mirror and picking out all the things that of yourself that you would let go. What do you feel you let go of?
Like the scare, I have to let it go. You have to do everything. No matter what the scare you are, do that. You have to move. You have to move because the scare led you in the same place, like stop you. And I was scared for a long time ago before that
Mm.
happened. So after that, I'm not scared anymore. Nobody, no matter what happened with me, not scared anymore.
Yeah.
What about you, Lenny?
I don't know how to phrase it, but that sense that, how do you say? I I used to think like no matter what happened, I got myself. I can depend on myself. If anyone fails me or lets me down in any way, I got me. And that was taken away from me because now I was dependent on other people. And I had to learn. I felt like such a burden. I didn't want to be anyone's burden, but it was that it's okay to depend on people. That, you can't do this entire life by yourself. You can't get through everything by yourself. You have
Hmm.
to let people in. You need help. And pushing the people you love the most away isn't going to help you, especially when they don't want to be pushed away. So I had to let him really see that vulnerable side of me, because like you, where we grew up, the things we've seen and all of that, like,
Hmm.
your independence is everything. Like, you know, I'm not going to depend on a man. I'm not going to do this and I'm not going to do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love my husband and I have him with me because I want him, not because I need him.
Right.
And at that point in the marriage, now is I really need you. And it like, it kind of broke down the ego, you know, of, yeah.
Um, with the other the I guess the following thing point that they have is illumination, right? Which is exploring um new ways of thinking. So would that be what in a roundabout way? So you went through the illumination. Were you seeing all the
I
things the
had,
same for you, Ani?
Yes. And when I look back, I say to myself, I say, you have to pass that because you are not the same woman, you are not the same person. Now you're more spiritual than before, and that's helped you to think about, how can I explain that? So how you can close to the death, to the, to the death, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, and it showed me, like no matter what, if you're gonna pass away tomorrow, you have to be in peace, because after that I feel peace, and I decide to live a life with peace every day. And believe me, I have peace in my heart and in my life, and my home is, you can feel peace in here. And that's, part, like, no, like how you say, te marcó en tu vida.
It it marked a part of is that
It
how
marked
it
you.
says it? It
It
marked
marked
you.
Yeah,
you.
like, yeah, that's, mark part of my life, you know, to continue, but with a new vision of my life. So it's like when you have a light up to continue, that's meant
Mhm.
to me, but in a new vision in my mind.
A new way of thinking.
Yeah. Hmm.
And you, Lenny,
Yeah.
which was what you were saying at the end, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, where do you guys think at what point did you make your peace with God, with source, with the universe, with this whole ordeal? At what point? In that, because that's the next step, is the union, which is the connection with self and God. Like, at what point, like, Lenny, you were saying earlier that you got really angry.
Oh, I was really angry.
So,
Really
where
angry.
did you, like, at what point in your timeline did you define, that you can say you made your peace with him or with the universe or source?
It was not a specific point, but it was a journey within the journey.
Mhm.
I talked a lot to God. I've always been someone to talk to God normally, but during that period, I had so much anger and I had to release it. I had to, like, so talking to God, understanding why I went through what I went through. I came across a lot of philosophies and theories about why we go through things in life, and sometimes they're pre-contracted. In this life you're going to learn these things, so these are the things that you're going to go through. When I was able, I guess, to put it in that perspective, this wasn't done to you out of malice. This was done because it's a part of life. It's Life happens, and you needed this in some ways to learn about yourself, who you
Mm.
are, how strong you are, to question your faith, because I came out believing differently the other end through all of this as well, and looking for all of those philosophical answers. I came across so much more information, and when I was able to say, okay, I'm supposed to be learning from this, there's a purpose to this, I was little by little able to accept and let it go. Um, and the thing I didn't know then, because I didn't know about the dark night of the soul, the first time I heard of it was about 2.5, 3 years into mine. Um, After I had stopped working, which is what, like 7 years after the accident or something like that. Um, Shit, why did I tell you that? Oh, I didn't know about the dark night of the soul. So I didn't, there was so much I didn't know. For instance, like today, when I was reading through, getting familiar with the topic and everything, Eckhart Tolle says when you don't fight the process, when you go with the flow of the process, let it be and everything, it you get through the process faster. So I think just going through the whole process and everything that it brought up, it not situations like that naturally bring up questions. Why did this happen? Why did it happen like this? Why did it happen to me? Why did it happen at this time? What does it mean? So when you start going through those things and you're looking for the answers to all of those questions, you start finding other information and you start viewing things differently. And that's what happened for me. Like, I just, I still believe in God, obviously, but I believe different in him differently. I see him differently now.
And
I
so much
see
more.
there's so much more, and I see the world and reality differently through that whole process. Um, so when I realized I was going through all of these things in order to teach me things, to put me in a particular place, it made it easier for me to accept. I was most angry when I didn't have answers.
And now, I don't know if you think the same like me, but when you are more being a spiritual, I don't know if you hear about the karma, like
Mhm.
this is your karma. This is not in a bad thing, but like the karma is like a line, you have to pass this. But if you look back, you say, if you're not a spiritual, you're never gonna say this is my karma.
Right.
But now when I think about that, I say maybe that's my karma to wake up. But I don't know if you think the same, but
Yeah.
I think this is the reason we are coming to the earth, because we need to be like a human, like to feel human, like a process, like
We
it's,
come here to learn and evolve.
yeah, we don't
And
understand at the moment, but when you are spiritual, when you know about that things, so you understand more. Believe
and
me.
yeah, that's what led me
I never.
to this type of spirituality.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. And I think no matter what happened with our lives, we have to be grateful. We have to be peace. We have to, be in peace with everybody because you never know when is your last day,
Exactly.
and we are come to learn and learn the love. We have to learn love. We have to learn the pain. We have to learn sadness. We have to, to learn a lot of things. That's
I appreciate
that.
on a different level because of everything.
Yeah.
I love on a different level because of what I went through.
Mhm.
Like, you know, the smallest things. One day we went to the state park. It was the first time we went to the state park near us. And it was so beautiful that day. The weather was beautiful and it was so calm. And I think I had needed to be out in nature for so long at that point. And my husband had mentioned his brother or something, and his brother isn't with us anymore. And I just had this moment of like, you could not be here. Like I had like in that moment, I appreciated that view so much that I was alive in that moment to be able to appreciate that day and be I started crying. I survived my thing. I made it. I'm still here. And that appreciation, that adrenaline rush of death came for me and I told it not today. that part of it has always stuck with me, that appreciation. Even through the hard times, the darkest days, I was grateful that I was there for my kids. You know what I mean? Like there was always something to be grateful to be there for.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just it's it's a different level of appreciation, especially once for me, I personally feel like I'm not fully finished with the circumstances, but the dark night part for me is over. I'm still moving affected. I'm still dealing with things about it. One of the reasons I'm a little extra emotional today is like tomorrow I have an appointment with a brand new doctor for my issues. And I mean, Jeannie, we're talking about this earlier today. And she was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Ugh, I have this appointment with my doctor." And I've had issues finding good doctors and everything. And it just brought up all these old emotions and stuff like fears and worries. Is the doctor going to be accepting? Are they going to listen to me? Are they going to? And but I'm not where I was before. Like before, I would have had full on, I made the appointment last week. I would have had at least 2 full on anxiety attacks and 1 panic attack.
Right.
You know, I'm nervous. I have anxiety about it, but I'm getting through it. And I'm going to shoot for one of my surgeries next year. So I'm still dealing with things.
Oh, wow.
But I'm not in the dark place. Like
Right.
that's what I think that's why it's such an appropriate name. Because
Yes.
when you're in the depths of it, I call it the black hole. When I tell my husband I feel like I'm in the black hole again, he knows
Mhm.
exactly what I mean. And it's just so I those little things, little achievements, I take joy and pride in them. I'm not 100%, but I'm getting there. Baby steps. I'm getting better and I'm getting better. This is something I'm probably going to deal with. I'm going to have issues for the rest of my life, but I can accept that now.
Yes.
I'm not, you know what I mean? And it's not every day isn't going to be good. I'm sure there will come the day where, I'm going to have some physical issues and I'm going to be pissed off that day, but I'm not going to dwell in it. I'm not going to, um, completely relax in that anger and that stuff. I'm gonna feel it. That's another thing. You have to let yourself feel the things that you're feeling when you're going through this process. If you don't, it extends the process.
Yes, it does.
Like Eckhart Tolle was saying, when you surrender and trust the process, just let yourself go through it. It it happens faster because you're not fighting every inch. You're not fighting every realization, every understanding, you know. So that's one of the things that I've learned. I've learned a lot of things. What are some of the things that helped you guys get through outside of your faith? Was there like for me personally, I started teaching myself how to paint during that time. I I love, 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 love to read, but during that time, my mind was so, off kilter with everything that was going on. I couldn't bring myself to even focus, to try and distract myself from everything that was going on. And my counselor said, "Why don't you try something new, something that's gonna challenge your brain, that you'll enjoy, that will, really make you get out of your head." So that's what I did. I did things like I taught myself how to paint. I started learning about new topics, things like that. I tried to Physical movement was really, really hard for me at the time, but I still had to force myself to move because you can't stay with, you lose if you don't use it, you lose it. So I had to keep my muscle stuff. So I would try to walk through here, and I started on my plants and stuff during those years and everything. And those were the things that helped get me through the daily. were there any other things that helped you guys get you through the daily, like activities or anything like that?
I actually had some therapy, um, because I did fall into a little bit of a depression and some anxiety. So I did have some therapy, um, which helped a little bit. I still like going to the beach. I like taking walks on the beach. Contrary to you, I also love reading, but reading actually helped me. Um, I was able to, because when I read, it's like I go into another world. I transport myself into another universe or whatever.
That's how it usually is for me, and during that
Right.
time, it
You
just
can.
wouldn't.
For me, it was a different form of escape. And music was another one that I was
Music.
really into. And then some exercising here and there also helped.
I journaled a lot too
Even
during
though I'm
that
not a
time.
fan, I'm not a fan of exercising, but I would every
Yeah.
now and again pick it up, trying to stay up to date with all that. But yeah, I did some bouts of therapy, um, which I recommend if you feel as though you're going through any of this and you feel like you're not getting over that hump,
Struggling.
like yeah, like you're struggling, I fully recommend getting some counseling, some therapy, somebody that you can tell them all your fears, all your worries, all your doubts to, someone you won't feel judged by. It could be a friend, it can be a counselor, it can be whoever you really, really trust. Just someone to be there for you and help you get through it. Um, because one of one of the things that I always thought about myself, prior to this, was not caring what people thought. And then
That's
afterwards
the
I
other
was,
one.
yeah, it was something that was like drilled into my head or something.
Mm.
And today, with this whole podcast thing, it's come back to the forefront again. And it's like, no, wait, you've already done this. You don't care what people think. Stop thinking about what people think. It's something that I'm kind of dealing with again, but I'm pushing it to the side and trying to push forward type thing. So, it is, certain things, like Lenny mentioned before, are going to be an ongoing process. Um, you just have to take it one step at a time and deal with it and just keep pushing forward.
And
Um,
give yourself credit for any little wins that you get during those times. Be gentle with yourself, be kind to yourself. Give yourself the understanding that you would give someone else who is going through your situation. That was one of the things I had to learn, was to be kind to myself and reframe my expectations for myself, you know? Yeah. Like, it's okay if you can't do this. You know what I mean? Like, the world's not going to end. You know, if your house is a little messy because you've been in pain for a few days and, someone comes over or whatever, if they don't like it, they can clean it or they can go. Those were things I had to, like, don't worry about what other people think and all of that. Yeah.
Like let me say, like something like you have to push yourself and be gentle with you. So I
mhm.
did something on the meter on my bathroom. Like I say, I have to look something every morning to remember me that, like I feel love.
To remind you.
So to remind me I feel love, and and I read and I write with a list of God love you. And the other side, I love you. So every morning, that's for years. It was there for years, like 7 years. And so it's work. It's work. So every time when I brush my teeth, I saw that. That's the first thing that I saw. So it was helped me a lot. And I did it because when you are, how you say that, like domestic violence, you
Yes.
have to push yourself because the other part says something bad things about yourself, about your physical body or something like that. Like they not help you to feel good. So that's what I did and helped me a lot because now every morning I read God love you and I love you like me. So that's helped me a lot. And after that, when I start feeling peace, I start to do exercise again. So I decide to ride my bike, my road bike, and I'm trying to, like, how you say, challenge to me,
Challenge.
challenge
Challenge
myself.
yourself.
Yeah. So I'm trying to start with 5 miles, and I say, if I can do 5 miles, I can do 10. and the next week, if I can do 10, I can do 20. So I remember that's what I did, to challenge myself. So at the last, I remember I ride my bike like more than 30 miles. And I was like, oh my God. So, it, you know, it's help after the dark night, you are a different person.
Yes.
I was told by everybody there's Lenny before the accident and there's Lenny after the accident. Um, and I did not like Lenny after the accident for a long, long time. I did not like her. I didn't know the changing part, finding myself again through all those changes when everything that you think makes you you is taken away from you and you have to find that new you. That was hard, but now I look back at myself, like everything that I've gone through so far, and I have pride for myself, you know what I mean? Like it tried to break me. It tried to break me, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally. And I crawled my way through, but I made it through. So I feel like it gives me kind of like that Wonder Woman feeling, like I can, there's so much more than that I could take on that I ever imagined. And I like
Yeah.
knowing that I am that strong.
Yep.
You know, I like knowing that no matter what, I didn't give up, and I keep every day, some days are better than others, but I keep going and I keep going. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
There were even parts, I would say there were even parts of myself that I didn't like, that I found through the process that I didn't like about myself. And I was like, why would I do this? Or why would I say that? Or why behave this way or that way? Um, and I changed it. Like I don't know, tried to fix myself a little bit. Um, and in the end, it helped me grow. It was a part of that growth process. So I, like I said, if you're going through it, try to try to fix yourself. Try to um always strive. I said this before. Always strive to be a better version of yourself. I think that's the one thing you can, if you want to write something to yourself in the mirror like Ani did, I'd recommend something like that. Like try to be a better version of yourself. Like Ani says, she challenged herself, every bike ride that she did. She wanted to go a little bit further, or, do it. It doesn't have to be an exercise. It could be a better version of you, set goals for yourself. Um, just
I
try to
didn't
be better.
have my body, so I had to turn to my mind. You know what I mean? And that's all the reading and about all of this type of stuff. I wasn't able to get into like my fictional reading and stuff where you lose yourself in another world.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to get into the self-help reading at that time, understanding why I was feeling the way I was feeling, how to get through it, and all of that. Yeah.
How can she say that in English? Because I want her to say that
She
question
she
because it's a
she
good
wants she
question.
wants to know if she wants to know how can you tell the difference between going through a process of the dark night of the soul versus a spiritual attack on you. Me personally, and this is just me personally, I think it's in many situations and circumstances, it's all the same
That's what I was going to say.
because the dark night of the soul is an attack of your soul. It puts your soul, your spirit in darkness. And when I've felt the absolute lowest has been when I call that black hole. You're in darkness. It feels like there's just no sunlight or anything like that. And the same thing happens when it's a spiritual attack. You know, you feel like you're in darkness, you're going through things. The other thing is, like what I was saying earlier about what helped me to accept it is that you go through these things for a reason, right? And sometimes, see, okay, this is going to be triggering. And this was my process. I want to tell you about me just so you can see where I went through because I went through this. I'd heard people say, everything you go through in your life, you agree to, right? And I remember the first time I heard that, it pissed me off. Like, who in the hell would agree to something like
What is it?
this?
Sorry?
Hold on,
Que
she's
cada
not.
cosa, que cada cosa tú pasa en la vida, you agreed to go through that before you were born. So it's either going to be part of your karma or it's part of what you agreed to go through in order to learn, in order to evolve in this lifetime. And once I saw it from that perspective, like I said before, I don't know, like at first it pissed me off, but then it was like, okay, if I agreed to this, I knew what I don't think I would have agreed to something that I didn't understand what I was getting myself into.
Right.
So if I agreed to this, then I have to go through this. It
That's
wasn't
why
just done to me just because.
when I hear that, I say, that's why I believe in the past life. Because if you did something wrong in the past life, you have to do
Yeah,
that
you'll
thing.
bring yeah, you'll bring karma with you, but not everything that happens to you is because of karma. Some
Yeah.
things that happen to you, there is just that event is a catalyst for you to learn from, to start that process of your spiritual awakening, your spiritual evolvement, mental evolvement, your evolvement as a person, you know. So not all things, I think it depends when they're all the same thing, whether it be a spiritual attack or a dark night of the soul, something you agreed to go through. It's the same, you're going through the same type of process. It's just for different reasons.
Right. And then if there's one thing you can take away or that we could tell you is through this whole process, you end up having this strong connection with yourself and with God. In my case, I believe in God, with God. So if you think you're being spiritually attacked or that you might be going through this dark night of the soul, that's the end goal is always remember that God is with you. Whatever it is that you believe in, they're the strongest source out there. It's basically the creator of everything. So there's nothing stronger than that. There's nothing that can beat that. So if you believe he's got your back, or source or universe has your back, and that you've got this strong connection with them, if you're feeling spiritually attacked, they won't be able to do anything to
They
you.
won't be able to
You're gonna
break
get
you.
you're gonna get
You
over
might
it.
bend a little bit, but you won't break. And
You
you'll
won't
learn
break.
from it. You'll be stronger from it.
You'll be a better person for it, and you'll have that better connection with God.
And that's another thing. How you choose to deal with your dark night, whatever this case may be, is a choice. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be depressed and disappointed and feel let down. That is all fine. But it's a choice every day on whether you choose to get up and fight that fight for that day to get through it. To try as hard as it is to find the silver lining, to find the positive in what you're going through, to look for the good in it. It's a choice. And it's not an easy choice. It's not an easy thing to do. Everything that I said I did and I went through and how I got through it, it was the hardest thing in my life, bar none. It was the hardest time of my life, but I chose to keep fighting. I found the reasons to keep fighting. I could have said, I'm going to be in pain for the rest of my life and I'm going to be disabled and I'm going to end up in a wheelchair and I'm going to end up da 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 da. Da. Why even bother? But I just, I couldn't. And part of the anger and stuff will come from that. When you don't want to give up, when you give up, you're like, why? I'm not angry. I don't care. You don't care. You have no emotion. And I chose to feel the emotion and to get through to the other side because you have that's the fight you're fighting.
And if you're at that point where you feel like you've given up, that you have no more reason to keep on fighting or whatever it may be that you're going through, go get some help. Go get some
Absolutely.
go get some medical professional help to help you get through it, because you will get through it even if you need
Yes.
help.
Because every day you get through it is one less day you're going to deal with it.
Mhm.
Every day you're marking another day off the calendar. I got so many more days to go. And I understand you don't know how long it's going to last. That's one of the hardest part. Mine lasted years. It was really, really hard. Um, but you have to hold on to any sliver of faith that the sun is going to shine again. It's going to come back out for you again. You will be happy. I was literally having those thoughts this weekend because
And it's
I knew this was coming up,
mhm.
and I thought about how far I've come and how much I love my life again. I'm in a good. It's not always easy, but I'm in a good
No,
place.
exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. I'm right now, thankfully, I feel like I'm in a good place, a really good place. Um, but that doesn't mean that my life is perfect. I mean,
Right.
there's daily things or weekly things or monthly things that'll pop up, and it's something you have to deal with, something you have to work through. There are internal traumas that you have to work through, you have to heal,
Mhm.
so you can continue on in your life process. You can continue on to grow as a person, spiritually, mentally, physically. You're going to keep growing. It's a part of life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, on our upcoming episodes, we'll be discussing mediumship, channeling tools, and feng shui.
Hopefully, the information we share with you today has been helpful in some way to you, and please remember to trust the process. We thank you for staying with us and hope you will join with us on another episode of Discovering Our Gift.